All right, let's get back to our current guest. Our current guest is Margie K. You can check out Margie's website at margiek.com. Again, Margie, thank you so much for hanging around here tonight and chatting with us.
Sure thing. It's a lot of fun.
Let's, if we could switch gears a little bit, let's talk about, you've got some, let's talk about your books first. You've written a couple of books.
Well, I've written 12 books.
Okay,
but,
sorry, I forgot the one.
But the two that are in this genre are Gateway to the Dead, A Ghost Hunter's Field Guide, and Haunted Independence. And I'm currently working on the Kansas City UFO flap. In fact, I've been working on that tonight, and I'm trying to get that done. And then I've got two more in the works and a documentary film.
Wow, a lot going on.
Yeah, I can't stay focused on one thing at a time, so I have to kind of have several things going.
Got to mix it up. You know, with your book Haunted Independence, somebody told me that Harry Truman's old home is quite active. Is that true?
It's a little bit active. It's not terribly active, but a lot of people have gone through there, me included, on a tour, and they see him in his study at his desk in that area. And then they also see him walking around outside and down to the Independence Square, which is right, just a few blocks from his home.
Wow.
So they've seen him walking with his cane and then, just disappears. And we've got a reenactor who looks very, very much like Harry Truman, and he dresses up, and they do special events. A lot of times people thought that it was that guy, and until he disappears.
Gotcha. Gotcha. I used to travel for business. I used to go to Kansas City quite a bit, and had the opportunity to go see his house a couple of times, and a lot of old mansions in that area. Kind of a neat old area.
Oh, it is, and we've got some haunted places. The Vale Mansion, I'm sure you've seen that.
I have. Have you done investigations in there?
I have gone on tours. They don't allow investigations. In fact, Independence is in denial that the place is haunted at all. And I think it's a mistake because they would probably have a lot more people coming through, but they avoid that at all costs. But I was lucky enough to be able to talk to a bunch of docents for the book and people who worked there over the years, and also some neighbors across the street. So they've told me some very strange tales. And this is interesting. If we have time, I can tell you the story. Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, Mr. Vale, as Harvey Vale, ran the Pony Express out of Independence for the government. And he became very wealthy. He got into a lot of different interests. Well, he was accused of some wrongdoing, and he had to go to Washington to defend himself. And even though he was exonerated, his wife was so mortified, and this is the tale, that she killed herself with morphine, with an overdose. And by the time he got back, she was dead. And he was so distraught, and he did not want to lose his wife. So he had a glass coffin built and put her in it, and he had the coffin buried in the front yard, but with the glass portion showing above the ground, so he could see her every day. And that greatly upset the neighbors, so he eventually moved it to an undisclosed location. And the neighbors, though, and people who live or have worked in the house often see Mrs. Vale roaming around the grounds and in the upstairs window where her bedroom was. And then strange things happen inside the building. I know I was on a tour several years ago when they used to still allow people to go to the third floor, and I physically saw 3 spirits up there. They were all men, and they were smoking. So I have a feeling that upper section was their smoking and card playing area.
Wow. Could you smell the smoke?
Yes, I did smell the smoke.
Interesting.
And that's something that's common, too, on paranormal investigations.
Is that there's residual odors?
Yeah, there's usually either smoke from a cigar or a pipe or a lady's perfume, and you catch a whiff of it. Sometimes you can identify that and then ask somebody, do you know what kind of perfume or what kind of cigars they smoked, and it'll match.
Wow, very interesting.
Yeah.
With your what are some of the highlight investigations that I know you've done so many, but what are some of those that you can share with us that are kind of the ones you'll never forget?
Well, I've got a case here in Independence I did about 10 years ago that is probably on the top of the high strangeness list. This family moved into a house, and it's an older home, and the sons started noticing strange things happening and seeing shadow people in their room and beady red eyes and very scary things. And the parents both didn't believe that they were seeing anything, but then the wife started seeing things happen, and she would have kitchen doors open and close, things like that. Well, the father still didn't believe it. So the father got really angry at the children. So they decided they were going to climb up, and they didn't discuss it. But it turns out that they kept having these experiences for years, even after they moved in, until they became of age and moved out. And then they refused to go back to the second floor where they slept. The mother, one day, the dog wanted to go outside at about 5:30 in the morning, and that was unusual, but she got up anyway, went out the front door, and stood there waiting for the dog. When she noticed across the street, one house down to her left, that there was a black early model sedan, like 50s, 60s, that looked new, sits right out front. And there were two men in the front wearing suits. They were facing forward. When out through the front door came this bright white bowl of light about the size of a baseball. And it just moved through the door and came slowly across the yard, then went in the back window of the vehicle, and then all of a sudden there was a third man sitting there. And he turned and looked out the back window right at her as the car drove away.
Wow.
Now that sounds like Men in Black.
Yeah.
But what the heck was that is a ball of light going right through a door and then turns into a person? That is weird.
That is really weird. You know, speaking of orbs, we have a dedicated listener in I believe in the Cleveland or Pittsburgh area. She listens to the show all the time, and she's sending some questions. She has curiosity about orbs, and I like to just ask different experts. I know orbs, of course, always seem to be associated with paranormal investigations and getting pictures. Now, maybe it's more, not only that, but it moves even into the ET UFO realm. I know here in Erica Lukes, who's now our new state director, she's got some unbelievable photos of 3 orbs floating over the Salt Lake Valley, and they're not those Chinese lanterns. But some real. I mean, they don't hang in the air for as long as these things have hung in the air. One of our listeners, she talks about. I believe she's experienced some orbs, but the orbs actually change color, and when they change color, different feelings are omitted from them. Have you ever heard of that? Of when they change color, they change the moods. They maybe change their I don't know if you want to call them their personality, but they change things a little bit.
Yeah, I have. And, I was one of those who thought years ago that orbs were spirits. That's what they were. But now I have seen intelligent, movement. There's been orbs associated with craft where they come down from craft and then they go back up to it. They seem to be maybe sometimes some type of a probe. And I've even gotten pictures myself, as well as some from other witnesses, of orbs with what look like tiny extraterrestrials sitting at controls. So it's
in these little orbs.
In these little transparent balls of light. It is the craziest thing. But you cannot discount it because there has, been one after the other that I've seen, and I've taken my own pictures recently of some in Independence that looks like an ET sitting inside the orb. So what these are, I don't think we can just make a blanket statement and say they're all one thing. I think they're probably multiple things.
Do you feel that, but with the color change, do you think that's a mood change, or do you think maybe that's a warning indicator? Or I know that some people have commented that if they're they'll see them, and if they're kind of red and they're orange, they tend to be peaceful, but yet some have said they turn like white hot looking, and that kind of changes the whole atmosphere of where they're at.
Well, sometimes they do change color. I think changing color would change a person's feeling about them because we have things, colors that we think about are, mean certain things like red is danger, green is good,
Right.
green is okay. Um, so that may be what they're perceiving, but it could just be something very mundane like they're changing their type method of propulsion. They're switching their fuel, something like that actually changes the color. And they've been known to change shape and size as well. I mean, we don't really have any technology that can do that I know of. But to change from a teeny tiny pinprick of light into, a 6-foot ball of light or a 60-foot gigantic flaming fireball, which has happened here, that's just beyond understanding.
Right. Right. Yeah, without a doubt, some strange but yet interesting stuff.
Yes, indeed. And that's why we keep on keeping on.
I know, and that's why you're going crazy doing films and books. Now, let's talk about Unex News Magazine. Is that something that you publish?
Yes, I publish that. I'm the senior editor, and I have a staff that works with me on that. We publish quarterly, and the topics are anything and everything unexplained, from UFOs and extraterrestrials to time travel, crop circles, cryptozoology, you name it. We have a variety of things in every issue. Probably have a theme for each issue, but then we'll have a variety. And of course, fall is coming up, so I'm working on that one right now. And that every fall is featuring paranormal.
Now, what's the cost
hauntings.
if our listeners want to get that? Is there a cost to this magazine?
Yes, you can get it digitally for free.
Okay.
You just sign up at unexnewsmagazine.com and just subscribe, and then you get that in your inbox or a link in your inbox. Or you can get it in print, and there's a subscription area on the site, and we ship to the United States, Canada, and the UK.
Gotcha. Now, are you still doing your radio program?
I am. I've just brought it back. The first show is going to be September the 5th.
Okay.
And it's unexnews.com is where we have the radio show information. And, of course, my guests are on all of the above topics.
Gotcha. So,
experts and authors in their fields.
what do you think about Art Bell coming back?
Well, I always liked Art Bell. I wish him the best. I hope it does well, and I'm looking forward to listening to it.
Yeah, I've been listening we play his show live through our radio station here. We pull in the satellite feed. Unfortunately, we're not allowed to stream the show when I do a lot of the IT work and stuff here for the radio station. That's what I do as a day job. I'm an IT guy, and we had to do quite a bit of a lot of duct tape and wiring to make that work, as far as the stream shutting down and something else popping up. But I've been listening to it, and it's old Art, and he's starting to he was kind of the one that really pushed me into doing this years ago, and he's starting to get some of his. Whether you can believe him or not, some of his crazy callers are starting to come back, and I wish the best for him. I think it's good competition out there. He kind of set the stage with it, and I'm glad to see him back. I think the more that we can get out about these subjects and topics, it's just the better for all.
Yeah, it is, and there are a lot of good shows out there. And if a person wanted to listen for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, they could always find something good.
Right. There is. It is good to see that. Now, you have another thing that I wanted to talk to you about is, you're with missing people. You've worked with the Kansas City Bureau of Investigation, and you've helped them out trying to find some folks.
Yes, and many other agencies across the country and worldwide, and also with a lot of private investigators, a few individuals. Although I prefer not to work with individuals because it's very emotional for them, and I need to have one step away from that in order to do my work. So in some cases, the individual cannot get law enforcement, for instance, to be interested in working with a remote viewer.
Right.
So I'll work with them directly. I'm working on a case right now in Kansas City with a mother of a victim, and it's very rough.
I can imagine. But it's got to be good though, because I mean, like with police officers, I think a lot of them kind of, I'm sure, maybe they don't say it, but when they involve somebody like you, and there's probably some that are snickering and saying, okay, well, whatever. But when you can come up with substantiated evidence, or you can come up with fact, that's going to change their mind quite a bit.
It does, and when I work with someone new that isn't used to working with me, I try to prepare them, but they're always shocked at the accuracy, and it scares them. Sometimes it scares them so bad they don't ever come back for help.
Really?
But yeah, I've had that happen. I worked on 3 large cases with one detective in Iowa, and it scared him so badly that he didn't call me back. He hasn't called me for years.
Were you able to get him substantiated evidence through your work?
Oh, yes. I got names, license numbers, locations, and this was in one case. The last case I worked with was a homicide, and I saw the event happen. I knew who it was that did it. I knew the person knew the perpetrator, let him in the house, and I watched the whole scene happen, and I explained the scene, where they were, and what was taken. That there was a safe, and there was money taken that didn't belong to her, and she gave the guy, and then the guy shot her in the back of the head.
Oh, wow.
And he was just totally silent. And I said, "Are you okay? This is over the phone." He says, "Yeah, you're scaring me." So that one ended up, they found the guy in Seattle, which is where I led him. I followed him remotely, and I found him there, and I gave him the name of the bar and the person working behind the bar that knew him.
Wow, that is amazing. Does a question I've always wanted to ask people and never have, but when you bring evidence like that to the table, is that evidence admissible in court?
Oh, no.
Or do they just use that as they use your abilities as a gift, as a tool, I should say?
They just use it as a tool, and in fact, I have an agreement with them to never put me on any record. Don't tell anyone they're talking to me. Don't tell their boss they're talking to me, and don't put my name in anything. And the reason is I don't want some guy to come after me who's mad that has been sitting in prison, and then I'm gone.
Right.
All right, and that would happen. I know it would. So they can never use my name. They can't name me as an informant or anything like that. So they always agree, and if they wouldn't, I wouldn't work with them.
Right. Yeah, that would be kind of scary, especially if, like you said, when they get released or their family or whatever. But if it's a tool that they can use and they can bring closure to some things, I mean that's a positive thing.
Yeah, and I just wish I could do more. I don't charge for that service, so I just like to be able to help, and I wish I could do more, but that would entail people calling me first or calling me right after they call the police if someone is missing.
Right.
Because then I can probably get a beeline on where they are, and they can go get them, and they might turn out better. I've only had one case where the person was found alive.
Wow. And
that's
was
unfortunate.
Was it because of your efforts that closed it up or
Oh,
brought
yes.
it to fruition? Yeah.
I told him exactly where to go, the address, the street, the description of the house, and that this 14-year-old girl was being held, duct taped, and tied up in a shed in the backyard. And the police, it turns out, had already been to that house, but I didn't know it. And the woman who had called me, she'd known me for years, and she was an attorney, and she knew my abilities, and she called me and said it was her niece that was missing. And she said they'd already been to that house, and I said, you need to go back there right now and go in the back. She said the cops didn't look in the back when they went there.
Right.
So she called the detective up, and she said, I'm going back there right now, with or without you. And he didn't want her to go, but he went ahead and met her there because she insisted. They went in the back, and they found the girl just where I said she'd be. And it turns out that group of people, was 2 men and a woman, were part of a white slavery ring, and they had kidnapped her, and she was going to be shipped out in the morning.
Wow, they're lucky for her.
Yeah.
Yeah, a day later or whatever, and that would have been that.
That's right. Been out of the country.
Yeah, they just had a big here in Salt Lake. They just had a. You wouldn't believe stuff like that would happen, but there is a group of Asian stores right on the edge of the city here. I mean, Salt Lake's a pretty small town in the scheme of things, and they had all kinds of shops and stuff like that, and they found out that that's what was going on there was a trafficking ring of all these young girls, and I don't know how many arrests they made and how many kids they took out of there, but it was sickening to see that.
It's amazing that it is such a huge trade, and that they're trading human beings, and it is going on everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully, when they meet their maker, they'll have to answer for that, because it's just amazing that an individual could even do something like that.
It's horrible, and I hope someday somebody figures out a way to stop it or cares enough to do it. The politicians, that is not on their agenda. They never talk about it. Very few of them.
A couple other subjects, and then we'll let you go, because I know you're busy and you've given us some extra time tonight. Just looking at my talking points. It said, I saw an ET while on an investigation last month.
Yeah, I did. Oh, that was fun. It was funny, too. We were working on this investigation that has been ongoing for a couple of years. This gal has seen multiple craft over her house. She's even seen an ET in her window and got a picture of it, and some ETs on her property. We've been going out there several times, and I saw orbs, and I used my night vision and saw hundreds of orbs in our yard. All of the investigators have seen strange craft in the sky that we can't explain, and those are all seasoned investigators, so we're seeing some things out there that shouldn't be there. So this one night, we'd been out there for 2.5 hours, and it was 10:30. So almost, and it was dusk. It was almost completely dark. We were looking east, and I was sitting in a chair, and one of the investigators was standing to my right and back. When I was looking straight ahead, I thought he bent over, because I thought I saw the top of his head, so I just glanced over to see what he was doing, and there was an ET standing there. It wasn't him at all, and it was about 3.5 feet tall, completely bald head, tan color, looking straight ahead. And I just got this quick glance. I'm like, whoa. And so I grabbed my FLIR camera, and we all started taking pictures, and I looked at the ground to see if there had been a heat signature on the ground where he was standing, but there wasn't anything. And so we're looking forward again and just looking at this area of the sky where there had been some strange things going on, when I think I see this investigator move forward out of my peripheral vision. I turn to look. It's the ET, and he is still just standing there looking straight ahead in the direction we are. It was almost like that movie, Paul.
Yeah,
you know, where he is investigating along with us. He's looking at the sky, watching the UFOs. You know, it was hysterical. So we're all, looking in cameras and all that, and I'd sit back down and I'm looking straight ahead again. So for now the third time, I'm positive that this other investigator has now bent over. Okay, he really has bent over this time. I turn to look, and here is this little ET, and he just bends forward a little bit and turns his head, looks me right in the eye, and gives me this little smile. I, I've seen ETs before, and I've been on investigations, but I've never been on an investigation and there's one standing a foot away from me.
Really?
It was crazy.
Cindy writes in, one of our listeners up at the U. There's an engineering group of engineering students that listen to our show every weekend. She writes in and says, Margie, what do you think about this little alien supposedly called J-Rod that was held captive? Do you believe that's real or false?
I remote viewed that, and I believe it's real.
It's creepy looking.
Yeah.
It's kind of like it's like a gray with a unique looking gray.
Yeah, but there are also some things that I'll only go so far on and no further, and that's one of them.
With that little guy?
There's something that just gives me a heads up of don't go any further and don't look at anything else. So I don't.
Do you think he's still alive, or because I think most of those photos pretty old or videos pretty old?
I don't know about that. I haven't looked to see that.
Yeah, I know. I've caught a couple. I've watched a few of the YouTube videos, and they're definitely it's a unique individual. Whatever it may be, it's just a unique little creature.
I'm hearing no longer here.
Really?
I think it was taken off planet.
Yeah, I kind of got a sense that he might have been experimented on a little bit too.
Yeah, I have a feeling that's true.
Again, a terrible thing for anybody to do. I guess as humans, sometimes we do some things we shouldn't be. Well, we should not be doing.
Some humans do, yes.
And they don't care at what the cost. Okay, let's talk about August 14th in Kansas City. You've got an event coming up, and you wanted to talk about that.
Yes, I'm going to be doing Paranormal Encounters. It's on August 14th at Unity Temple on the Plaza in Kansas City from 7 to 9 p.m. The tickets are $10, and it's at the door. Just pay at the door, come in. And I'm going to be talking about some of the strangest cases I've worked on, some of my own very odd cases or events that have happened to me, and some kind of spooky stuff to gear up for fall coming up. It's all true, but it's spooky and scary. So that's going to be our evening, and I'm really looking forward to it. It's the first time I've done an event of this type at that venue. So people are going to hear new things.
Are you still active with your paranormal group back there?
I am. We don't do as much as I used to, just because of the sheer number of UFO investigations, and the activity that we have in Missouri is just crazy. We've got 19 investigators now, so we have all these cases to manage and investigations, and it's just it's a second job. I mean,
yeah,
really, it's a second 40. I could easily spend 40 hours a week just doing UFO investigations.
And that's all volunteer work.
It sure is. I wish I got paid. I've been making a lot of money. But it's fun, and you get down to the answers, and you also find out that there is a thin line between UFO and paranormal, and really it's all one. There are a lot of cases that involve strange things that go more into the paranormal aspect.
Well, it seems here one thing that I've just kind of noticed, and I don't know if that's something that's kind of happening across the country. It seems like the paranormal research stuff is maybe, and I could be wrong, but it seems like it's maybe backing off a little bit. It seemed to be really, really a hot and heavy thing, and now it's kind of some of the teams here have disbanded. I don't know if it's just people are, maybe if they get involved with it and they don't realize how much work it is to sit there and listen to those EVPs for hours and hours, because it is a lot of work.
Yeah, it is, but I don't know. I know a lot of very dedicated paranormal groups that do that. And, and they'll tell me what they find and sometimes call me to help them with a case, and I'll remote view from here. I don't, go out on site so much anymore. But I do a lot of remote viewing work to help them, to assist them, and that may be ultimately where I'm headed as far as what I'm going to be doing in the future, is just helping other investigators. But no, paranormal is very hot in my neck of the woods. So there's still quite a few serious groups
folks doing it, huh?
Yeah, and I can't tell you how many miles of footage I have and EVPs that I still haven't analyzed myself. So it's you've got to have volunteers to help. You've got to have a good team.
Oh no, I can imagine. It's because again, there's just so much work, and there's just so much work involved with it. How about your documentary? Can you talk about that at all, or give us a little hint? Or love to hear about that.
Yeah, I've been working on it for about 5 years. I've got interviews from many, many people, and it is going to be called Missouri Unexplained, and as well as one of the books to go with it. They're both going to be released at the same time. And I'm working on multiple things in the state of Missouri. Many Bigfoot sightings and some clans of Sasquatch. Mm-hmm. If you told me 10 years ago that there were Sasquatch in Missouri, I would have said, okay, there were some sightings in the 70s, but it's all over. It's not over. There is some weird stuff going on here, and paranormal things with Bigfoot as well. They seemingly sometimes just disappear in thin air right in front of people.
Do you think there's a connection to these Bigfoot and some of these other things? You think there's some sort of connection?
Yeah, I think there's a connection to UFOs. I have had cases where they've seen strange balls of light or UFO in the same area, either at the same time or a day or two later or before a Bigfoot sighting. They've got to be related somehow.
Right.
What that exactly is, I'm not sure, but then we also have had a lot of cattle mutilations, animal mutilations in the state, including some dog mutilations that have been very strange. Finding more and more of those. To date, I've got 32 reported, but I just found out of 4 more last night. And, of course, some areas that you might call a portal, hotspots. Mm-hmm. Where these strange events seem to occur in certain spots. And I've got some theories about that, and that's all going to be in the documentary and the book.
Do you work now? I know Chuck Zukowski he's kind of taken the lead on the MUFON mutilation stuff, hasn't he?
Yes, he has.
Is his sister still involved with MUFON?
Yes, Debbie Ziegelmeyer is our state director for Missouri. And they are a brother and sister investigative team, have been for many years. And Chuck has worked with me, and I've worked with him. He has referred some cases to me, and then I've told him about some of my cases. We've had some things tested at the same lab. And oddly enough, what is coming up as a commonality in the animal mutilations is that the soil underneath where the animal is has been made non-water soluble or hydrophobic. Wow. And that can only occur under extremely high temperatures. So what causes that in the middle of a field in the middle of January?
Right. Well, one thing, I've had Chuck on the program a couple of times. One thing he seems to indicate, though, is that these are kind of, post-mortem mutilations. He doesn't feel that they were done while the animals were alive. It was kind of done after the fact.
In everyone I've investigated, it has been after the fact, except one, where you can see the ground where the cow was thrashing around.
Gotcha. Yeah. You wonder what in the heck is chomping on these things for what reason?
Well, I don't know, but it is weird, and when you start investigating, strange things happen to the investigators.
Right.
We had a case here not long ago in Henry County, which made the news, was all over CNN and everything, and also it's on Hangar One, this case. And on this ranch, we went out. This is the second time I'd been out. The second cow within 7 days was found mutilated. And during this particular time, it was dead calm and was over 100 degrees. While we're packing up to leave, all of a sudden this strange, very, very high, like 70 or 80 mile an hour wind comes up as if from the rotor of a helicopter, but you couldn't see or hear anything. And then it left. Then I went back a couple of weeks later, took another investigator with me, and the rancher, the other investigator, and I were out in the field looking for evidence when we heard 4 planes go right over our head, very low, but we couldn't see them. Not one.
Like they were cloaked or something, huh?
They were all cloaked, 4 of them, and they were all different types of engines. You could hear the different sounds coming from these engines.
Wow. Unbelievable.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, it is. And I'm sure the more you dig into this stuff, the weirder it gets.
That's exactly right. And there's no end to it. Just when you think you've heard it all, something new comes up. And I guess that's what kind of keeps me going. I'm interested in anything strange, and if it's new and different, I'm all over it.
Right. Oh no, I totally agree. I'm glad there are people like you out there that do this type of stuff, because again, it takes so much time and effort. Margie, I'm going to let you go because I know it's getting real late where you're at, and you've got a lot of things going on. I want to thank you for taking all the time you did tonight to be here with us and talk about your work and enlightening us. And I'd love to have you back on again after all your conferences are over and you get your other books out, and wish you the best on your documentary. Is it going to be on local TV or a film company? How's it going to be put out?
I think we're probably just going to self-produce and just put it out there. Depending on the final product, which I hope is really good. I've got the help of a professional film production company, so maybe we'll see it somewhere. We'll see. I hope so.
Yeah, it's and maybe that's the best way to go about it. It seems like so many people want to go out and raise all kinds of funding to produce this stuff, but I can tell just in your voice and in your work and your words, you do it because you're a true researcher, and hopefully go out there, self-produce it, put it together. Maybe it's not History Channel quality at the end of the day because you don't have a staff of 100 people to fix it. To produce it. But sometimes those make the best documentaries, and those are the ones that go viral and skyrocket.
Well, we've got some good pros working with us, so I'm hopeful that it does turn out really well.
Well, I do too. I wish you the best. And again, I want to thank you so much for being here late tonight. It was an honor to have you on as always. I'm going to subscribe to your magazine, and again, the best of luck to you. And you don't need luck. You know what you're doing. The best to you with your books and your film. It sounds like an exciting project.
Well, I appreciate you having me on. Thank you so much.
Okay, Margie, take care. Have a good night now.
You too.
Bye-bye.